The Alberta wind still whispered through the Heartland pastures, a familiar sound that had carried countless seasons of joy, sorrow, and resilience. But lately, for Amy Fleming, the wind carried a different tune, one of quiet acceptance, a fragile peace built over years of healing. Life at the ranch had found its rhythm after Ty's devastating departure. Lindy, her daughter, was growing fast, a bright spark mirroring both her parents, her laughter echoing where silence had once reigned. Amy poured her energy into her work with horses, her unique gift a constant source of purpose, and the steady presence of her family, Jack's quiet wisdom, Lou's pragmatic support, Tim's gruff affection, even Georgie's visits bringing a sense of the wider world, formed a comforting tapestry. Yet the hole Ty left, though scarred over, remained. It wasn't a gaping wound anymore, but a subtle ache, a phantom limb sensation that surfaced in quiet moments, watching Lindy ride, catching a glimpse of a certain kind of sunset, the smell of rain on dry earth. She'd learned to live with it, compartmentalize the memories, and even tentatively explore the possibility of a future that looked different than the one she'd always imagined. Nathan, the charming vet from Hudson, had become a gentle presence, a potential path forward, respectful of her past, but offering a hand towards a new beginning. They took things slow, an unspoken understanding hanging between them about the complexities of Amy's heart. The ranch itself felt settled, routines established, the daily ebb and flow of work and family life a predictable comfort. Katie and Lou navigated the complexities of the Dude Ranch and mayoral duties. Jack oversaw everything with his timeless steadiness, and even Tim seemed to have found a measure of contentment, his focus often on his granddaughters. But the universe, especially the Heartland universe, rarely allows peace to settle for too long. Change was coming, carried on that same Alberta wind, a change so profound it threatened to shatter the carefully constructed reality the Fleming Bartlett clan had built. It started subtly, a strange truck seen lingering down the county road, a feeling of being watched that Amy initially dismissed as paranoia, a lingering echo of past traumas. Then came the disjointed phone calls, hang-ups with only static on the line, unsettling occurrences brushed off as wrong numbers or technical glitches. Jack felt it too, an old rancher's intuition prickling at the back of his neck, a sense that something was off-kilter, though he couldn't pinpoint why. He mentioned it casually to Tim, who, ever the pragmatist mixed with a healthy dose of suspicion, initially scoffed but found himself scanning the tree lines more often than usual. Lou, buried in budgets and town council meetings, noticed Amy's slight preoccupation, but attributed it to the pressures of work and single parenthood. Georgie, visiting from her Olympic training camp, was too caught up in her own demanding world to sense the atmospheric shift back home. Only Lindy, with the unfiltered perception of a child, seemed to notice the subtle cracks appearing. She asked Amy questions about her dad, prompted perhaps by old photos or overheard snippets of adult conversations, innocent inquiries that unknowingly tugged at the loose threads of the past Amy tried so hard to keep tucked away. The feeling intensified, a low hum of anticipation beneath the surface of everyday life, the calm before a storm nobody saw coming, a storm centered around a ghost from the past, a man presumed lost to them forever, walking back into the light. The quiet before the earth-shattering return was almost deafening, each normal moment charged with an unknowable future, the stage being set for a reunion that would redefine everything. The day it happened began like any other Alberta day, crisp morning air, the smell of hay and horses, the clatter of breakfast dishes in the ranch house kitchen. Amy was in the round pen, working with a skittish mare, her focus absolute, her movements fluid and intuitive. Lindy played nearby with Spartan, her small hand gently stroking his muzzle, a perfect picture of the legacy Amy and Ty had started. Jack was mending a fence line out past the ridge. Tim was supposedly heading into Hudson for supplies, but likely detouring via Maggie's, and Lou was on a conference call, pacing the porch. It was utterly, deceptively normal. That's when the unfamiliar dusty pickup truck, the same one Amy had glimpsed before, rolled slowly up the long driveway, crunching gravel under its tires. It wasn't an aggressive arrival, but hesitant, almost cautious. Amy paused, shielding her eyes against the mid-morning sun, a knot forming in her stomach. Visitors weren't unusual, but something about this felt different. The truck stopped near the barn, the engine cutting out, plunging the immediate area into sudden silence, amplifying the nervous whicker from the mare Amy was working with. The driver's side door opened and a figure emerged, tall but leaner than she remembered, clad in worn jeans and a simple plaid shirt, his back initially to her as he seemed to gather himself, looking towards the familiar peaks of the Rockies. Amy's breath caught. It couldn't be. Her mind flashed through possibilities. A lost traveler, a new client, someone mistaking the ranch. But then he turned, slowly, deliberately, and the world tilted on its axis. The face was older, etched with lines that hadn't been there before, haunted by shadows in the eyes that spoke of hardship and things unseen. But it was unmistakably him, Ty Borden. Not a memory, not a dream, but flesh and blood, standing mere yards away, breathing the same Heartland air. Amy froze, the lead rope slipping unnoticed from her hand. The mare shied, sensing the sudden paralysis, the abrupt shift in energy. Time seemed to warp, stretching and compressing. Sounds faded, the wind, the birds, Lindy's chatter, replaced by the frantic pounding in Amy's own chest. Disbelief warred with a tidal wave of emotions so potent it threatened to drown her. Shock, raw and numbing. Confusion, sharp and disorienting. A surge of anger, hot and unexpected. And beneath it all a treacherous flicker of hope she thought had been extinguished years ago. He took a hesitant step towards her, his gaze locked on hers, conveying a depth of pain, regret, and desperate longing that words couldn't capture. "Amy," he said, his voice raspy, rougher than she remembered, thick with years of silence and untold stories. Just her name, but it held the weight of everything they had lost, everything that now hung precariously in the balance. Lindy, drawn by the sudden stillness, looked up from Spartan, her head tilted. "Mommy, who's that?" Her innocent question pierced the suspended moment, grounding Amy back into the impossible reality. This wasn't just about her and Ty anymore. This was about the daughter who barely knew him, the family who had mourned him, the life she had painstakingly rebuilt in his absence. The past hadn't just knocked on the door, it had kicked it wide open, standing on the threshold, demanding to be reckoned with. The shockwaves were just beginning. The reunion, if it could even be called that, was fractured, suspended in disbelief. Amy couldn't move, couldn't speak, her mind struggling to reconcile the ghost in front of her with the man buried deep in her heart. Tay took another step, his hand slightly raised as if unsure whether to reach out or keep his distance. The air crackled with unspoken questions, years of pain, and the terrifying fragility of the moment. It was Jack's arrival that broke the spell. Cresting the ridge, he saw the strange truck, then the tableau by the round pen, Amy frozen, Lindy looking confused, and the stranger standing before them. Recognition dawned slowly, then hit him with the force of a physical blow. His usual stoicism crumbled, replaced by a look of stunned disbelief, his face paling beneath his weathered tan. "Teen?" The name was barely a whisper, carried on the wind. Teen turned towards his father-in-law, the man who had been more of a father than his own ever was. The look exchanged between them was heavy with shared history, grief, and the impossible reality of this return. Tim's arrival was, predictably, less subtle. Pulling in behind T's truck, he emerged ready to question the unfamiliar vehicle, only to stop dead in his tracks, his jaw dropping. Tim's reaction was a volatile mix, suspicion warring with a flicker of something akin to relief, quickly overshadowed by anger at the years of silence. "What in the hell?" he breathed, his eyes narrowing. Lou, alerted by the commotion filtering through her phone call, rushed out, her businesslike demeanor shattering as she took in the scene. Her mind, always racing, immediately jumped to the practicalities, the sheer impossibility, the seismic impact this would have on everyone, especially Amy and Lindy. Her shock manifested as a flurry of frantic questions directed at no one in particular. Amidst the adult chaos, Lindy remained the anchor of bewildered innocence. She clung to Amy's leg, looking up at the stranger with wide, uncertain eyes. "Mommy, is that Daddy?" The question hung in the air, heavy and heartbreaking. How could Amy explain this man, this myth, this source of a deep, unspoken ache in their lives? T knelt slowly, carefully, his gaze softening as he looked at the daughter he barely knew. He didn't force an interaction, just held her gaze, a universe of regret in his eyes. The explanation Ty offered later, haltingly around the big kitchen table, the same table where they'd shared countless meals, arguments and reconciliations, was difficult to process. It wasn't a simple choice to leave. He spoke of threats, not against him, but against Amy and Lindy, connected to dangerous figures from his past he thought long buried. Witness protection hadn't been an option. The threat was too insidious, too close. He'd been forced underground, aided by a shadowy contact who helped him stage his disappearance, convincing him it was the only way to guarantee his family's safety. He'd lived off-grid, moving constantly, cutting all ties, bearing the silence as a necessary burden, watching from afar whenever he could, his heart breaking with every milestone he missed. It was a story filled with gaps, raising as many questions as answers, a narrative steeped in sacrifice, but also in a profound lack of faith in their ability to face the danger together. Could they believe him? The relief of his being alive wrestled fiercely with the betrayal of his silence, the years of grief they'd endured, believing him gone. Amy listened, her expression unreadable, torn between the man she loved and the deep wound his absence had carved. Jack listened, his face grim, weighing the story against the years of heartache. Tim remained openly skeptical, probing for inconsistencies. Lou tried to process the logistical nightmare, the emotional fallout. The initial shock began to morph into a complex web of doubt, anger, hurt, and the terrifying, unwanted resurgence of love. Tim was back, but the path forward was shrouded in fog, the challenges of forgiveness and rebuilding trust looming like insurmountable mountains. His return wasn't an ending, it was a tumultuous new beginning, forcing everyone, especially Amy, to confront the ghosts of the past and the terrifying uncertainty of the future. The easy peace of Heartland was shattered, replaced by a raw, unpredictable landscape of emotion and consequence.